Hey guys, I need a haircut. I am recording this from my house. Usually I kind of try to pre-record, but I've been recording these kind of every week because of the coronavirus. I just think that's kind of an unprecedented situation once again, and it's affecting all levels of how we do anything, especially this, working with the community. I mean, normally we want these really close partnerships, and I want you to go out and I want you to observe and talk to other people and go to meetings and all that type of stuff. But how do we do that now that we're in quarantine, that we're staying at home? How long is this going to go on? Is this going to change business going forward? I don't have any of those answers, but I do know that as early childhood educators, we do need to be part of our community because we want to partner with families. If we don't have good partnerships with families, then we really can't have a good work with children because parents are their children's first teachers. They're the ones that take them to school, that support them at school, so we can't educate the child without working with the families. But some families need more support. Some family units need more strengthening. Some families are considered at risk or underserved and they need more support. So how can we work with a family if the community is not supporting that family, or that family is in need of more community support? So we need that as well. This is Dr. Joyce Epstein, and I'm going to kind of be using her work for the rest of this kind of lecture, or at least when we're talking about community. At the very end, I'm going to talk about kind of marketing, or like what your program, how you tell your people about your program. But for this, I'm just going to be using Dr. Joyce Epstein, who's at Johns Hopkins. If you search her on Google, a ton of stuff comes up, and a lot of it is either really low cost or free. So she has kind of an action team or an action plan that you can find. It's a PDF on Google. It's free. And it is just kind of the structure for participation for parents, families, and community members. So community is a big part of that. Because I think a lot of times we have the procedure, we know how to work with families, but working with community members, so getting advocates in, getting support for at-risk families, all of that, a lot of times people don't understand or haven't ever been taught how to go about doing that. And I'm really lucky that when I started in kind of community-oriented programs, and I got voluntold a lot to go out and to do meetings and be in the community, and that helped me generally be able to build those skills. And I'm, kind of a people person too, so that helped as well. So she does typically talk about elementary schools, but I think the work, because we want so much to encourage families, is also really applicable to early childhood education as well. So she has 6 types of involvement, and she has a book, but a handbook actually, and then this is free. She has a free like 3 or 4 page PDF on Google as well. So these are where do you want to focus your involvement? Where do you want help from the community? Parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision making. So this would be like parent councils, PTOs, PTAs, or collaborating with the community. So social services, early intervention, multidisciplinary support. So I feel like parenting is probably something that most programs have a big focus on. Same with communicating, we want those partnerships. I think we could do better at volunteering. EES, Educational Enrichment Services Systems, has a really good volunteering program built in, and that is something you have to do. I think a lot of other programs could try to have that as part of their program, and that might be a fantastic idea. Learning at home is also a great one. I think we could also build on that, ways that we could go to the families at home, kind of in the Head Start model, or we could send home activities for the parents to learn play-based skills by doing a craft or an activity at home with their children. And then decision making, this would be parent councils. We usually have those, but maybe they're not supporting the vision of our program. Maybe they're all out on their own. Maybe it's a very loose assemblage of parents. I'm not sure. And then this is also decision making, could be advocacy for reform in your community. So being on boards, lobbying for groups, maybe at the city council county or state level as well, and then collaborating with your community as well. So these are the 6 types that she's kind of identified. So brainstorming first steps, and this is typically securing funding, writing letters to social services. Funding is actually easier than most people know. I have a bit of experience with grant writing. It's actually because most places want to support education. That is a very worthy goal. Imagine if you were trying to raise money for some like really ugly naked mole rat that's critically endangered. It would be pretty hard. You'd probably not be picked as much as cute, adorable 3-year-olds, out of preschool where everybody's like, oh yeah, take my money. So I think funding sometimes seems like such an issue, but we can find private philanthropic funding or through the county and state as well. So you need to know what your first steps are, and you need to kind of have a budget and what you need this money for. Is it facilities? Is it parent involvement? Then your second steps typically, and this would be in a year that you would do this, is meetings with your classrooms, talking with the teachers, with your management teams, with your community as well, talking with the parent support groups. What are our needs? What are our wants? If we had funding, if we needed advocacy, what do we want to do? And then after that, it's specific guidelines. So a big part of it is brainstorming, trying to find out what money you might need, and then scheduling and implementing this with families, parents, staff, and your community members as well. So here is an example. So typically the parts of the plan, so if you're using the 1-year action plan that Dr. Epstein kind of came up with, you identify an activity, so something very concrete to support the goal for involvement. On the right-hand side, I have an example of this, the Incredible Years Parent Training, which I've done before. It's very successful. Parents like it. It's a lot of fun. Then you probably need to have dates. So typically it's a 12-week program. Sometimes I've seen in my Oceanside neighborhood, a community center is doing it. It's like every month or every 2 weeks, something like that. So it's not an every week thing. And it's during the day as well, which is very much for stay-at-home parents, which is their demographic that they are currently trying to reach, which is fine. Typically when I'm thinking, I think because I am a working parent and I work with working parents, that I'm always kind of thinking after hours, daycare, childcare, dinner, that type of thing, in order to get parents there, because you don't want just somebody to show up at 6 after a really long day working at a bank, and then they have to, keep their kids quiet, they're hungry, they're whining. So always the best kind of parent education that's after school has a ton of Costco pizza. They have a bunch of, teenagers in another part of the room or in another room, and they're all watching, Disney movies together. So I think that's kind of what I'm always thinking about, because I want parents to make it easy enough so that they come back. Okay, so she often talks about grade level, but we usually use classrooms, so classroom level or a whole program, or just talking about early childhood education. Incredible Years is typically targeted at early elementary or preschool, so you would target your 3 preschool classrooms. You, of course, could do infants and toddlers, but that's typically is preschool. And then number 4 and number 5, I kind of combined it together. So what needs to be done to support the activity being parent training, and then you need to find the people in charge who are leaders for this, and then they need to delegate as well. So we need to contract with family counseling services for the training, and a lot of times you can get funding through more public institutions or from like the Moose's Club, Elks Club, Interacts, things like that. They will typically give, I think the most I've ever gotten was like $1,900, but that will typically pay for somebody to be a parent training, and then the Costco pizzas, and then typically the teenager labor is from the local high school, or kids that have been voluntold by their parents. My kids get voluntold to go places sometimes and hang out all the time. Having the assistant director schedule staff, because in this case we're going to try to pay our staff to provide childcare. Or maybe we'll have it on a rotating volunteer basis. We're going to ask the parent group to provide dinner because typically the parent group has sold wrapping paper or something. So, hey, can you give us $250 so we can provide dinner? Or you can write a letter to have a local restaurant provide meals, cakes, coffees, whatever it is. Typically, other places, especially local businesses, are very helpful when it comes to that as well. So this is a way that you can use a one-year action plan, and think about that. That's an hour and a half for 12 weeks. That's a lot of parent training. Incredible Years is known for being very supportive. We could also maybe partner that with some social skills in the classroom with the Incredible Years trainer and the teachers. We could probably see some real social and emotional changes as well. You could do this as well to actually work more with the community as an advocacy. So partnering with groups that are looking at homelessness, poverty as well, because we know those supporting systems and those part of our systems are really important for parents as well. So in that case, if we're wanting to kind of go bigger, you need a network, and you need to have social services agencies. You need a professional network of therapists, practitioners, early education specialists, elementary schools, staff, doctors, pediatricians, nurse practitioners, public health nurses, anything like that. Especially with the COVID, having people that a name is really, really great, because instead of like having to cold call a business, like if I was to go to Health and Human Services, most of it has been shut down. It's just kind of bare bones at this point. But if you had an email because you'd gone to a conference or you'd met somebody, you could probably get that person where they're working at home, and you could still continue to do this type of work even as our lives are starting to really change because of the coronavirus. So typically, being voluntold, having to go to things is how I developed my network. I was the youngest, lowest on the totem pole. I got sent to these types of things. But, just by being polite and friendly, I got to know agencies, teachers, practitioners, community groups. A lot of the jobs that I've had as far as teaching, my mother-in-law was like, go teach at Palomar. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do that as my side hustle while I'm working during the day with children with special needs. And then it just kind of grew, and I met somebody at another thing, and they're like, oh, come work at Maricosa. Oh, kind of, you still have to interview, but kind of being invited to come interview or getting that kind of support to apply for that is really helpful as well. So what services do they provide? And sometimes you're not going to align. Like if it's prison education, at this point we can't hire felons and people with misdemeanors, but we can work with system impacted people in our classrooms helping with parenting. So sometimes it's not always going to align, but we can always support each other as part of our community. So business cards, I still have business cards. Maybe I'm really old, but we still do them. I still have a ton of them. They're in a binder. I have all of them. I should probably get with the times and do some kind of, tech thing, but that's how I am. But being able to know a person, have a person in mind, being able to have the direct contact information so you don't have to go through Health and Human Services or through the county is really great. And then when you're invited, go. I am in my daughter's elementary school PTA, and that I've actually networked with people that have helped me a lot at work. And then also people from community centers who come to our PTO meetings have then done the same for me. Like, oh, hey, you do this at Maricosta or at other community colleges. Hey, will you come over and do this for us? So I think that kind of reciprocal, I'll help you, you help me, is really important. I want to just touch on marketing because I think this is important. And I think that a lot of times we don't see marketing as something that we need to do, but it is really, really important because we want to keep our families happy. We want to create relationships with customers and suppliers and keep them happy as well, because this is a money, not maybe making, for some of us maybe, but money has to enter into it. Most of us have to take money or fees or get money from the state, something like that. We also want to make sure that we're not causing misunderstanding. If you are an academic program and a family wants Reggio or vice versa, they're not going to be happy, and you're not going to be happy if they're coming in thinking it's one thing and it's not the other. Physical location, I know some FCCs do advertise with a sign, some do not because of safety reasons. Most programs will have some kind of signage outside though, to let you know that this is a school, or if they are hiring, or if they are enrolling right now. It needs to be safe. I think I've said before, my daughter's preschool is on a very busy road. It's got a fence that needs to be shut, and there's a big sign that says that it needs to be shut. And then also to get in as well, you need a code. You can get into the main office, but then the code as well. It needs to be clean and inviting. You know, it looks generally clean. It doesn't smell like poop. Everything's neat and orderly as well. And then we see the safety. So just being able to walk in and see that is really important. Drop by interest still continues to happen, especially in smaller, more walkable communities. Or if you are in a larger kind of complex. I used to very briefly work for a for-profit corporation that was at a major workplace. And so, you know, somebody would find out they're recently pregnant and they would walk by, oh, I'm due in this day. When can I get my baby in the baby care? Something like that. So parents want clean, bright, healthy looking places, especially now with the coronavirus. They're greeted appropriately. They're given a brochure, a card, they're given the enrollment procedures, they're put on the wait list, something like that. So that professional connection is starting from the very beginning as well. A lot of times if you as just one person are not on site, another staff member has been trained in that good professional courtesy so that you can kind of keep those people coming back. Or at the very least, if you never have them as a parent, they can say, oh, hey, one time I stopped by this place and it was great. I think the funniest thing is how little we have an online presence. And I think maybe at least I'm of an older generation than some of my students. You need to have a Facebook page at the very, very basic. It's always funny to me that programs don't, but that is how our younger generation, if you're thinking, if we're having 19 and 20-year-olds having infants that are now coming in our program, they were born in 2000. And so everything that they know is online. It's up to you how you want to manage this. Do you want to have an Instagram page? Do you want to have this? But even a really simple like Squarespace website, hours, philosophy, location, when you're going to be closed. You have a private blog that parents have to have a code to go onto the website to see what's actually happening. So you don't have to have pictures of the kids on like the public part of the website. And then you can have more individual things on the kind of password protected part. But this is a storefront. This is as much as it is important to have a physical location that looks nice. You also need to have a virtual store mat as well with basic information, how to contact that goes to you so that you can reach out and be professional with these families as well. It also gives legitimacy to programs. A lot of the younger generation doesn't see things as being legitimate if they don't have a website or web presence, and if it doesn't look good or kind of savvy as well, that could also turn off some of our younger kind of families as well. A general picture or videos will be nice as well. You can, either take the pictures of the children in the program with their signed consent, or you can use just Creative Commons stock photography and have just a general video made or something like that. But you also need to make sure that it is spelled correctly and grammatically correct. A lot of times people don't also, if they're like, I'm not going to be online, you also forget that people on Yelp and School Savvy and places like that can create your school for you. So like Rate My Professor, I don't go on because I have very thin skin, but I know that I have a profile because a student created it. I never created it. I don't want anybody to rate me in those types of situations. I do that through a formal evaluation process at the schools that I teach at, and that's very meaningful to me. I don't want to be online, but I have no choice. I have to be on Rate My Professor because somebody put me on there. So somebody can take your school name and put it on Yelp, and then people can give those types of reviews. And a lot of our families, most of our families aren't going to do anything without checking out those school site services first. So you have to decide how you're going to do that. And what happens if you on your review site are getting a kind of a negative review. You can reply publicly to the disgruntled person and offer to resolve it. You can dispute their account, like especially if they were out of control or you think that they were wrong or something like that. You can leave a comment underneath saying your side of the story, but it can come off very he said, she said. You might also need to rethink your interactions with this parent, how you might need to change your professional behavior. Because once again, I'm almost 40. I'm working with families that are 20, that could be my own child. So I guess theoretically the children in the infant room could be my grandchildren. I mean, I have a 3-year-old at home, so I was obviously an older mother. But you know, theoretically, that those generations are using social media and they're using review sites a lot more than maybe somebody my own age as well. Some places will pay or not pay parents, but they will strongly encourage parents to write good reviews for them in order to increase kind of their star rating on Yelp, Great Schools, or Savvy Source as well. You know, we could discuss if that is savvy, if that is a good idea online wise, if it's not, because, you know, you're strongly encouraging. I haven't heard of parents being paid, but I would really, really strongly go against that, because that seems like kind of a moral line that we shouldn't be crossing. But I have heard of parents being rewarded or really asked. And I've been asked before, because I had a great relationship with a teacher at a preschool, and I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, like, you know, you really helped me with the potty training, and I wrote something similar like that because I did appreciate the school and that teacher as well. And then how do you use technology and social media in the classroom? Are you using Brightwheel? And that's a tool that you use in order to communicate with parents, like Remind or Seesaw. And I do love that with my daughters at elementary school. And then my daughter at preschool, being able to log on, see how her day was, what she actually ate. And then, you know, a cute picture of her is really nice. Not every program needs to have that, and that's not something that you have to have. I have heard that it's easier now. But that also means that you're going to have a phone or an iPad in class for that type of work as well. So how do you have those boundaries, the supervision? How do you, what are the teachers allowed to do on the iPad? Is it more of a distraction because it's out so much, and then they put on a music video, and then they put on a YouTube thing, and then is it more screen time than you would like as well? So it's up to you how the iPads and things like that are going to be in the programs as well. And that is a hard decision to make, and I struggled with it too. You know, my thing is to limit it as much as possible. But once again, you know, I kind of seem to be of a different generational age than some of the younger parents that are like, oh yeah, there's just iPads everywhere all the time, and that's how we communicate. And now everything is Zoom, everything is online. You know, more semesters are going to be online. We might have to be teaching more online, you know, because of this pandemic. And then the very last thing is rewards. So I referred a parent one time, and I think I got $50 off a month of enrollment. A sibling discount, I did that with my twins. Thank God, with twins, both of them in preschool at the same time for 2 years. We were broke. I think I got a 15% discount, which was really, really nice, but it was still really hard. And then a discount on tuition as well. If that needs to be in your budget, that is a loss, even though it's probably fairly nominal. So it's a smaller amount. You still need to include that in the budget that you are writing as well. So if you're providing 15% off because it's a sibling discount, that needs to be kind of recouped within your budget as well. And that is it for this week, guys. I will see ya online.